It's strange, but even with all the joy that we've shared with one another and that we hold in this room, I just can't shake grief from my mind this week. There is, of course, the perpetual grief from the news. Don't worry, I won't be talking about that tonight. And there's also the grief of what may happen, or even looking back at last week's near toxic air quality. Again, don't worry, that's not the topic of tonight's sermon. I just want to talk about grief in the broadest sense of the term, feelings of loss, pain, and how we can hold these feelings and then move forward. Yesterday was Tisha B'Av, the anniversary of the destruction of the first temple in Jerusalem in 586 BCE, 2,500 years ago. A solemn day. It is traditionally observed through reading the Book of Lamentations, fasting, and experiencing the day as if it was a day of communal mourning. To put it bluntly, the entire point of waking up in the morning on Tisha B'Av is to be as miserable as humanly possible. I mean it. It is a time where we think of our suffering over the millennia and collectively grieve. And curiously, this week's Torah portion also begins with grief. In Parshat Va'etchanan, Moses recalls how he pleaded with God to be allowed to cross over the river Jordan and see the land which he had worked so hard to reach. But God refused, saying, "Speak not of this matter again." Moses was to die, never entering the land of Israel. And he grieved sad and bitter tears. Yet, that is not where our story ends. Moses takes his grief, his anger and frustration, and he uses it to charge Israel to heed and follow the laws and instructions that he taught them. He reminds them that they stood at Sinai and made this sacred covenant with God to keep God's commandments and be God's people. But here's the thing. These Israelites did not stand at Sinai. That was their parents. Moses is speaking to the next generation, the oldest of which were just small children when Israel stood at Sinai. And this is where we reach the crux of the matter. Moses tells them, actually no, he tells us, it is not with our ancestors that God made this covenant, but with us, the living, every one of us who is here today. The covenant is not a static agreement made at a single moment in history, but timeless. It continues on even to us in the 100th generation. And just as that covenant remains with us all those years since Sinai, so too do we tend to carry the grief we have experienced in our lives. Judaism does not shy away from grief. In fact, it embraces it. It has structures that allows us to experience our grief, to hold the pain and the loss and the fear, and then, having felt what we needed to feel, move forward. Just as when we lose a loved one, we sit Shiva, to literally sit in our grief, so too does Judaism provide the moment that we exit from Shiva, to exit the home and return to the world. Tonight, as I mentioned at the start of this service, is Shabbat Nachamu, our Shabbat of comfort. Built into our very calendar, Shabbat Nachamu is an intentional shift away from yesterday's grief and towards tomorrow's redemption. It is a moment that we can look forward at the coming new year with hope. Yes, there are griefs, and yes, there are uncertainties, but there is also comfort and reasons to have defiant optimism. We are still here. We still have our community, our lives, and our faith. Therefore, we can work to strengthen one another when times are hard. And boy, can they feel really hard. So, let's hold on to that grief for a moment. Breathe in. And know that you are not alone. And breathe out. We each have each other and our tradition to help us when things are hard. Nachamu, nachamu. Comfort us and be comforted. Shabbat shalom.